Hi everyone, this is Giovanni from WindsorPatania Architects. Today we are recording our first ever episode of Portfolio Builders, a podcast where we interview successful property developers which are working worldwide. Today, our first guest ever of this podcast is Francesco Fasanella from Habitat Investments, which has been investing in London for a few years now, and we've been also working together on a few projects. Hi Francesco, how are you?
Hi, Giovanni. I'm fine, thanks, and nice to see you again.
So with Francesco, we mainly worked on project in Acton, London, and a few years now. So it would be nice, to start maybe Francesco with the beginning. So how did you start in property? Obviously, you're not British. You're coming from Italy, from Rome, and how did you end up in London, and how did you end up starting your development career?
Yes, so my background is in law. I moved to London in 2008, so it's now more than 16 years, I would say. And then I decided to move into property just a couple of years after, when I set up a property consultancy company with my brother here, Habitat Investments. This was 2011. And basically, we started by advising Italian buyers to invest in the London property market, mainly for buy-to-let investments, but also for some people who wanted to have their own property to live in. Then, let's say in 2000, and we've always carried out like some project management works as well, mainly like by internal renovations and refurbishment in properties of our clients and our own properties. But then it was like 2019 when we decided to set up a proper property development business. So we acquired our first property. It was a rundown dwelling house in Acton, and we turned this into a house in multiple occupation, comprising 8 studio flats, most of them self-contained, and that was our very first bigger development scheme.
But before starting developing, your main core business was lettings, right?
Yeah, so basically,
Sales, effectively.
together with this property consultancy services, so where we advise clients buying properties here in the UK, most of these clients used to retain the properties and rent them out. And so we also created our property management, property letting and management branch. And we've been basically managing properties for 15 years now as well. Yeah, exactly. And from time to time, we also do sales, but that's not our sort of core business. Our core business is this property development and the actual operator. So we created a sister company called Habitat Living, which is our property management and letting operator specialized in the co-living and residential.
And do you feel you had to kind of change your mindset from running a letting agency to actually making the real estate developments? What sort of the mindset shift from that to real estate developments?
Well, I wouldn't say that there is an actual shift, because we carry out both activities like at the same time, and they integrate with each other, because basically we firstly create these new assets in specifically co-living, and then we operate them as well. Of course, it requires multiple skills, and at the same time, we have sort of split the job where I lead the department of property development, and my brother, which is my co-founder, he leads the department of the operator of the lettings and management business. Yeah.
I see. And what made you sort of choose that specific area to start, Acton in London? Did you see an opportunity there? How did you come across that area?
Well, in reality, there was a friend of ours who had built 3 different HMOs comprising like in the region of 30 units back in the back in 2013 to 2017, and we thought that they were very profitable. So we sort of tried to follow his strategy. And at the same time, we realized that when we started investing in, and this is specifically North Acton, which is close to a huge development scheme which is going to be built, like the biggest in the entire UK and probably Europe for the next years. The Royal Common and Park Royal and Old Dock Common. At the same time, they were building the Elizabeth line, so this new tube line just close by, just there. And so we found out that there was still a very good potential. And indeed, prices have gone up quite substantially from 2019 till today. And I would also say that the rents as well increased by something in the region of 30% in 5 years.
So you actually you've been enjoying with your investment both rental income and the rental yield, as well as capital appreciation, which is a great combo. Just for our international audience, or for everyone which is not familiar with the HMO strategy in the UK, would you mind to sort of outline what made you pick up this strategy in the first place, and what it is in the first place, the HMO investment strategy?
The HMO is housing multiple occupation. The use class defined by the planning system in the UK is, in this specific case, is sui generis, but it can also be like C4. So it's something in between residential. Well, it's still part of the residential use, but it's something like more in between a residential and more like commercial / hotels class use, where basically the internal units, which can be like rooms or studios or whatever, do not need to comply with the actual minimum standards of a proper apartment, which is, let's say, 39 square meter for a studio flat. So the reality is that with these HMOs, you can create multiple units and increase the rental income, basically.
Yeah, dramatically, without having to apply for a block of flats. So it's a block of flats in disguise, basically, into a property, more or less.
Usually HMOs and the co-living, etc., provide better returns of investment than the residential units, basically.
So you defined as a development strategy. So you picture in your mind the type of property you want to get in your portfolio. Yeah. What's the next step? How do you find the property? How do you appraise a good investment opportunity?
Yeah, this is mainly our strategy. Of course, we always try to understand whether there might be different strategies and opportunities in the future, but that's a separate story. We are specialized in the co-living, and of course, the first aspect, the most important aspect you should look at while starting a co-living development project is, of course, planning. So just trying to understand whether there are specific planning restrictions. So, for example, if the area is an Article 4 area, meaning that you need a full planning permission in order to change the use. But most of the time, and especially for our strategy, we go for a full planning application, meaning that you have to make a more formal procedure to obtain the change of use, and it's not always easy. Actually, it's rather complicated, especially because we go through different steps. So firstly, we have to increase the volume of the building, so create new spaces because we go to the rear with extensions, to the side with other extensions, and to the loft to create extra floors, apart from the internal complete reconfiguration. So yeah, definitely the planning risk. And at the same time, of course, the financial viability of a project. The fact that per se the HMOs provide higher income doesn't necessarily mean that every single project can be turned into an HMO and be profitable. So there are
Indeed.
criteria that must be met and metrics that we have to follow. So of course we carry out development appraisals. In this case, well, I forgot to mention, but our strategy is built to rent. So it's more like generating cash flow for future years rather than more like speculative investments where you buy, build, and then resell. So the metric that we have to sort of follow is the ability of the project to generate higher returns in the long term. The specific valuation method that we apply is the development appraisals. And in order to then see what would be the initial yield and try to predict what the IRR is for the future years, rather than a residual valuation, which is more a valuation method that you apply when you have to calculate the residual value of the land in order to carry out the development and probably then work out what will be the profit on the gross development value. So it's definitely important to understand what would be the income generating and the initial return on investment in terms of rental income. But of course, then there is a very important aspect, which is the ability to also operate the asset, so the HMO, in an efficient way. And this is the reason why we very much believe our habitat living, our operator, is so important in our strategy. So the ability to have this vertically integrated system and model where we develop assets and at the same time we operate them for the long term.
Is a massive, advantage, the one you have, right? You see the whole, journey of the building from the early days to construction and then management. When you calculate your return on investment, how much weight do you give to capital appreciation in a city like London? Do you rely a lot on it, or you just focus on the rental yield?
Okay, this is a very important question, because of course you need to have a sort of capital appreciation, but it's not easy to understand how you're going to generate and create value in a build to rent project. In theory, it is more important to understand what would be the actual net cash flow after expenses, and so calculate it in the long term. What would be the cash flow, basically? But of course, we also seek to have some capital appreciation at the same time. Most importantly, we have to specify that the valuation of a completed HMO asset, and specifically this specific HMO, so the sui generis HMOs, which means like more than 6 units / occupants, the valuation method that the RICS, the Royal Institute of Chartered Surveyors, the guidelines that they have set for the valuation of these assets, basically differentiate these assets from the normal standard residential. And so the valuation method would be an investment valuation rather than the comparative method. Investment valuation means like capitalizing the rental yield, the rental income, by applying a specific yield, which is the expected return based on a comparable analysis of similar properties in the area. Long story short, it's difficult.
Yeah, it's a long sort of analytical process. It sounds like you have a really strong spreadsheet you've been using in your developments. And just getting into the nitty-gritties of development, which are the main sort of challenges you have been facing since you started. How many rooms do you have in your portfolio now? I think more around 20 or something, more than 20.
Yeah, it's almost 30 HMO studios plus all other
Yeah.
properties that are standard
Of
residential
course, you're
since
managing. Of course,
the
yeah.
last 15
So,
years. Yeah.
which were the main challenges you faced, and how you overcame them?
Of course, classic. The classic one is delivering projects on budget and on time. We've faced like a very hard times over the past years because prior to Brexit, pandemic, and the huge inflation we've suffered over the past years, we could build for, let's say, probably the standard cost per square meter for typical project like this was in the region of £2,000 per square meter, 2,500 probably.
Yeah, wonderful days.
With
Yeah,
exactly the same standard, unfortunately, we went up to, let's say, 3,500, even £4,000 per square
yeah,
meter.
yeah.
So that make a huge impact on the appraisals, and that's of course one of the biggest challenges, because land cost, like the cost for purchasing the building, hasn't decreased much over the past years. So we are still in the middle of a process where probably building prices will decrease. But in these last 2 years, it was really, really tough because, yeah, you at the same time, you have to spend a lot to buy the site, and then construction costs like would be so high, including professional fees as well. There was an impact on that as well. And so definitely you have to be very, very conservative, and this is the lessons we have learned. Now, we are probably too conservative when we carry out our appraisals. When I show my appraisals to lenders and banks, they are sort of quite, or agency, of course, agents, yeah, they're quite surprised, but that's the reality. That's the cost we suffer. We do proper tender, so we have an idea of what the cost is. Apart from what the BCIS, which is like the Bible for quantity surveyors in the UK to assess like and predict cost, construction costs. But we have a practical experience, and we know that's what it is what it takes.
Will
So
you be able
definitely
to?
it is.
Would you be able to share like one of those experiences during construction? You know, one of those kind of setback experiences which you had to really push through.
Oh yeah, we had a
Yeah.
terrible experience once, like with the last two projects actually. So we had to apply for a 3-phase. So it's basically to increase the electrical power of a building. So going from a single phase to a 3-phase. And back in 2021, with our first project, we paid something like £4,000 for this upgrade. And unfortunately, we have received quotes from the suppliers for the second one of, let's say, even the first quote, we got a quote of like, if I'm not wrong, like 70,000 pounds,
Wow.
which was
Wow.
just shocking.
Yeah.
Then we
Incredible.
managed to have this reduced, but still, like, we spent more than 20,000 pounds.
Yeah.
And the same with the other projects. So that was like, of course, it was not possible to expect this. It's like just impossible. Yeah, so that was like one of the shocking experiences. So
And obviously, you
difficult
have
to
some
predict as well.
you do have some contingency, you
Yeah.
know, but obviously, you know,
But you know
some of
what? Like,
these.
standard practice is applying a contingency of 10-12% on construction costs and all other associated costs. But with relatively small projects, you cannot like sort of work in percentage. You have to because like £70,000, it's basically eating the entire contingency for the entire project. So
Just for context, how much was the construction cost for these projects? One of these projects?
yeah, we are in the region of £800,000 to £900,000 plus
Yeah.
VAT. Good thing is that with the conversion into HMOs, we benefit from a reduced VAT rate at 5% rather than 20%.
Yeah,
So
massive
that's
bonus.
good.
Yeah. And in terms of working with building teams, do you have any sort of experience to share, and any suggestions in working with building teams?
Yeah, I mean, what we try to do is, I can say we have built a strong background in project management now. So we try to go sort of by the book, let's say. We employ a professional team which that covers like all professionals that are needed. So we of course have apart from the design team, so architects and engineers, etc., etc. We also employ a contract administrator in QS, so the contract is administered by professionals. But of course, also we, thanks to our background in law, we are also very familiar with contracts. So we are on it, let's say, at the same time. And yeah, so first of all, like following all the procedures and not cutting corners in the procurement is paramount for us. And this helps a lot, like to reduce the risk. So enforce the contract when it's needed. We have to. Unfortunately, this leads to some sort of disputes, but at the same time, I mean, you have to
Protect yourself, protect your,
protect your client. Yes, of course. But still, like, yeah, there are always like ongoing issues in the construction industry. It's very disputes are like around the corner all the time. So we know that, but at the same time, the important thing is delivering the projects on time and on budget whenever this is possible, of course.
Best practices, in managing construction projects, such as employing specific consultants or certain habits which are a must if you're a project manager in construction. Would you be able to sort of suggest some?
Yeah, what I would probably do always better in the future would probably be employing mechanical, electrical, and plumbing engineers from day one. Although, as you know very well, it's not very easy for these relatively small projects, let's say.
Yeah, they're expensive.
For small and medium projects, it's very, very tough. But at the same time, it's important because this is where most of the time you face problems with contractors. I don't know why, but they don't really like this this specific part of the construction process. And for our type of projects, the mechanical and the electrics is so important because basically what we do is we build mini flats, and everything is so dense that you have like we're talking about studios from even like 8-9 square meter to 16-20 square meters. So, and you have many in just one dwelling house, basically.
The ensuite, you have the ensuite, the kitchenettes.
Exactly. Washing machines in every room. Yeah, because we know that pays a lot in terms of rental. But at the same time, there is a lot.
Yeah. It's a lot of pipe work, to manage on site, in the ceiling voids, in the walls, So if you don't have a plan in place before construction, during construction, it's going to be, all done, improvised by the building team effectively with all the consequences.
Yeah, because these companies, they all outsource plumbers and electricians, right? So they are not there every day on site. And the construction manager of the construction companies doesn't necessarily have the same expertise. They don't have to of a specific specialist professional.
Yeah.
So that's tough. But at the same time, they are not huge projects where it's justified to have a big budget for the plumbing and the electric. So it's very, very tricky, I would say. This is one of the trickiest part.
I agree. And all right, so maybe we could touch a little bit on tenants management, from the point when you actually imagine the space for the tenants, when you list the features of the bedrooms should have, what's your vision for tenants retention in relation to building the property on its own?
Okay, so you're talking about the construction and how is the what would be like sort of the strategy to build these properties in order to retain tenants, or you're more
Yes.
focused on the yes, of course we know we have procedures in place. We have 15 years and more of experience with managing tenants, so we know how the properties should be built and what you have to sort of apply and supply in order to have the best tenants experience and reduce operative costs during the life of the building afterwards. Of course, this is very, very important. As you know, because we've done projects together, the specific items such as sound insulation are really, really important, and you don't necessarily find this in other type of different buildings. So you have specific threshold that you have to meet in order to comply. It's not just about complying with building control. It's more like making your life easier and creating spaces that are more enjoyable for tenants, so that where they cannot like sort of hear people walking upstairs and issues like that. So this is definitely something that we have to look at. And as I said, we create spaces with kitchenettes in every room. This helps, for example, reducing the reducing like problems related to management of tenants during the life of the project where they share facilities. It's nice to share facilities, but sharing kitchens and bathroom is not necessarily so nice. So despite the planning departments ask you to have like communal facilities, but we don't really think that amenity space should just be these ones. You can create like other sort of rooms that help like people live together, spend some time together, etc., but not necessarily the bathroom or the kitchens. And that's definitely something that we have in our strategy.
And your tenants are professionals mainly, right?
Mainly professionals, so young professionals, of course. But we also have a certain amount of students, just mainly postgraduates.
Do you have a preference in between professionals and students?
Not really.
No?
I'm very honest. I like both. I like it. Oh, well, let's say we have most of our tenants are international tenants, and that's for sure. So like people coming for some years to either study or live in London, or just young professionals that maybe with their first or second accommodation in the UK. But they are all pretty much young, let's say below 30, maximum 35, max 35 years old,
And any challenges in managing tenants, any sort of stories to tell on how, a tenancy went wrong and how you solve it?
Well, I mean, there are always stories, but we like have strong operations and procedures in place.
So I guess like troubleshooting starts from the beginning when you actually select the right tenants, right?
Oh, yes.
So if you do that right, you shouldn't have issues in the long term with this.
I mean, we do it really by the book. That's a 15 years
exactly.
experience. So we are regulated by the ARLA and by the RICS. So we know what it takes, and we are really strict with procedures. So with the application process, for example, with checking the all references and credit checks, etc. So for example, with students, we only take at least 6 months. 3 to 6 months rent in advance. Otherwise, unfortunately, we cannot commit with them. And we have deposits in place within the governmental scheme. So of course it happens. It happens not too often, but it happens that we have to sort of deduct part of the deposit. Sometimes it goes into a dispute, but honestly, I think we have a success rate in getting what we know, like of 99%, sort of. As far as I remember, I don't remember a case where we sort of lost. We had a weak case, and in terms of a dispute related to the deposit. And then, of course, we have all the system in place for contracts, and we have to comply to the huge amount of regulations related to the HMOs. Because as you know, there is a license here. And apart from the license, there are a series of checks that you have to carry out, even like on a yearly basis, but some of those are like even on a 6-month, biannual base or whatever,
And in the future, are you planning to stick to HMOs, or you're planning to diversify your strategy for portfolio building?
Yes, we are planning to diversify in the sense that the sort of buildings will be similar, let's say, in terms of creating smaller units, if it makes sense. So we are not looking in the near future to go for standard like residential, just because they deliver lower returns. We would also like to go into the short-term and flexible stay market, let's say, just because this would help.
So holiday lets.
Yes, it can be holiday let, but even like a rental for 1+ week. So there is basically a gap here, especially here in London, of the rental between, let's say, 1 week, 10 days to 3 months. Because as you know, it's unless you have a license, a planning use as hotels, so the C1, you in theory you couldn't rent a property for less than 3 months. Yes, all the Airbnb apartments, most of them are like illegal, because there is a limit of 90 days per year. And so there is a gap there, and there is a huge demand. So that's definitely something we are looking into.
If you were to go down that route, how many units would you look at putting together under the same roof in the same property? How many units would you look at?
We would like to go up to 20 to 30.
All right.
Yes.
Yeah. So one big building converted. Yeah, we're talking about conversions and retrofit projects. To achieve 20 to 30 service accommodation effective units.
Yes, but either for also for the HMOs, we would probably now
go up.
Bigger project. Yeah, they're
Makes
even
sense.
probably more simple to manage at the same time.
And a better leverage of your time, because as we know, right, you can stay in planning for literally years, right? So to get all the planning permission in place, you might. The more ambitious is your vision for the scheme, the longer you stay in planning, because you might need to sort of split the application in smaller applications to get what you want at the end, right? Any advice on that regards in relation to how to manage that process to make sure while you get planning, your cash flow is still, not hurting you?
Well, I mean, you could say if the property is habitable during the application process, you can still rent it out. We've done it sometimes. I mean, we've done it often. So unless the property is non-habitable, you can still rent it out until you get full planning, and then you start the next step in the construction process, which is the detailed design, probably. But still you can still go and rent it probably until you sign the contract with the construction company, so until the tender stage. And that helps, that helps the cash flow, of course, and we have done this in the past, yes, but not all the times this is possible.
A lot of developers, they, when they start out, in the early days, they kind of underestimate how long things take from planning to finding the building team, etc., etc. Yeah, any advice on that regards?
Yes, the first one will always be difficult. That's nothing, because you have to learn. At the same time, I think what I would recommend is hiring a very good project manager that has done similar projects already in the past. So you will have to learn, but you want someone to have had already the experience so that you can learn from them as well. So that's definitely something I would do. So just check the track record of the professional you're gonna employ, and at the same time, never underestimate time, never underestimate cost. But this shouldn't stopping you from doing.
Yeah,
Do.
100%. When we've been working together on a couple of projects in Acton, and what are you looking for when you choose your architect? Let's say, which are the top 3 things you're looking in the lead designer of your team?
Yeah, no, definitely the track record. Have you done similar? We went with you because you had already experience in the HMO field, so that's definitely something that, of course, listen to recommendation from experienced people
Yeah.
who refer, because it's not always like not every recommendation can be a solid one, I would say. So, but at the same time, check what the professional, as well as the contractors and everyone else in the team, has previously done, and check whether they have this specific track record, because we are working in a very, very specific field.
Indeed. And how about the building team? What are you looking, apart from the track record, are there any sort of signs of a good building team you can sort of appoint on your projects? What are the good signs you will look for when you choose a building team?
Yes, this is the hardest part. Again, like, the procurement should be carried out super professionally. So hire someone that is an expert of the actual procurement stages. So we have, of course, like a list of items that we have to carefully consider before hiring a company. But you can see, like, as soon as you start the tender, always do a tender, but you have to know how to carry out the project, the process. So hire for at least for the first one, but I would recommend just do it all the times. A good quantity surveyor, a good project manager / contract administrator, because they will know, and they should be from the Royal Institution of Chartered Surveyor, I would say, because they will know what are the actual checks that you have to carry out on the construction company. Of course, you need like a good team of lawyers as well. It always helps, even for some inputs that you might need, etc., etc. And but then, if I can give you some examples, again, the track record of the contractor. So we have always experienced the fact that our contractors didn't expect this job to be so difficult. Despite we have warned them. I mean, it's not just an HMO. We are building like co-living spaces where it's more similar to hotels, let's say. Probably sometimes even more complicated, because hotels don't have kitchens in every room, right?
Yeah, so
So
tight. Yeah,
yeah,
high dense developments. Yeah.
It's high density development, and they really have underestimated the costs, unfortunately, as well as the the time required to complete these projects well. And so just check whether they've done very similar buildings. And, and of course,
how much do you weight like the personal feeling with the lead contractor, the management team, right? Is there how much does the human connection feeling count in this selection process?
it is very, very important. It's very important, and it's not everything, but that helps a lot. So, say for example, how patient are they in the tendering stage? We have had like companies coming to the tender and, for example, rejecting our documents provided by our QS and just saying, oh, well, we use our own contracts, we use our own. Sorry, thank you very much. We're not interested. So, yeah, that's definitely important to see how flexible they are during this. Imagine if they are not even flexible during the tender stage when they have to get the job. Imagine what can happen after.
Of course, yeah. So you spot these behaviors early and you say, okay, maybe the price looks good, but on the other hand, I don't think I can really work well with this person.
And then the financial affordability of the companies.
Yeah.
It's not easy to get. I mean, it's very complicated and probably not even worth for them for sure. But it's difficult to find contractors for this type of projects below, let's say, 1 million, etc., that can provide bonds. It's very tough. So yeah, I should say, well, yeah, try and get the bonds. Okay, yeah, but I know that it's not easy. So you have to come to an agreement. But at the same time,
for clarity and for the audience, would you mind defining what bonds stand for?
Yeah, it's a guarantee that the contractor provides in order in case of non-performance, let's say. Because otherwise, of course, the legal procedures, even the ADR procedures, there are ADR procedures, so alternative dispute resolution procedures in place, but at the same time, they are expensive all the time for both parties, and it's always better to come to an agreement in case of disputes. But at the same time, if you know that the contractor has financial if they can provide some financial securities, but just basically probably checking whether they are profitable as a company, let's say, so that they don't have like anything to lose if they
of course,
wind
your
up
due
the
diligence,
company.
yeah, 100%.
So the due diligence is very, very important, and this is something that probably clients tend to ignore,
but just because they are impatient to go on site, right? Yeah. So let's go on site, and this building team is okay, but then they forget about the details. And as we're talking about building teams, another big topic is around how much should a developer pay for a deposit to start construction, right? Is it 5%, 10%, nothing, 20%? How do you calculate that amount?
I would say zero.
Zero. Yeah. Okay.
We always manage to get like a zero.
Okay. Yeah. Because we heard, some building teams which are even asking for 20% upfront. Obviously, they need to have a good reason for asking for that. Is a sign maybe they're not the right building team.
Expenses are very, very low.
Yeah.
The initial expenses for the contractor are very, very low.
Yeah.
20% is a lot. Imagine a project of 1 million.
No, it's impossible. It's crazy. Yeah. The stories of cowboy builders, they all start with a deposit story. So 100%. Yeah.
red light.
I mean, we've seen usually 0%, but also 5%, maximum 10%. But you need to really justify
No,
why you need
negotiate
all
zero.
this.
Negotiate zero. I mean, if they
Yeah,
can't even afford to start a site, that's a sign that
yeah, they are like struggling financially, so they
yeah,
need cash flow because maybe they
yeah,
are they have a liability on other site,
exactly.
and
Yeah. So they will use
yeah,
your money
yeah.
to pay the other.
Because the interesting thing of contractors is that they always like see your job in the context of the other jobs they have, and the cash flow is moved from one job to the other, right? So that is if mismanaged, can create like a domino
Yes.
effect, and so is a really big red flag. Okay, so just moving to the future, right? Habitat investments. Where do you see your company, Habitat Investments, with your brother, Marco, being in 5 years' time? What's your plan? Where do you want to be with your portfolio?
Yeah, of course, we would like to increase our portfolio. So we have like projects and in mind to set up like a strategy to build our portfolio with investors at the same time, and so let the our operator branch grow as well and take on more and more units to manage and provide more and more accommodation, high quality accommodation here in the UK. But at the same time, we're really looking forward to expand this model to our current country, so in Italy, where we see there is probably an interesting opportunity. And I'm thinking about major cities like Rome and Milan, for example.
Very, very interesting. I mean, a
Yeah.
lot of international investors are scared of the Italian market because of the regulation and uncertainty of the market. So you see an opportunity there instead.
Yeah, also because this is a niche, like this is a segment. We are not
Of
talking
course.
about huge
Yeah, yeah.
projects where funds are involved, etc. We are talking about the the middle sort of segment. So projects with 20, 30 units, let's say. So
Okay.
yeah.
Still service accommodation, holiday let sort of style, or
Yeah,
more.
yeah, with this
Yeah.
flexible stay model where basically there is like a combination of different different types of contracts.
Okay. As we are getting to the end of the podcast, any sort of recommendations, any suggestions for future developers which want to start investing, let's say in London? Any suggestions?
Yeah, study first of all, study property development. There is a lot of material out there, like books, etc. I know people tell me I am a very academic approach, but at the same time, I think this helps me. So imagine I have done my second master's degree 3 years ago in real estate development at the University of Westminster, where I had already done another master's degree 15
Nice.
years ago in law. And I'm always like studying, etc. Because at the same time, yes, it's true that you learn more from practical experience, but the practical experience, if it's not like supported by knowledge, it's like can become like a sort of a message, and you there is a huge risk that you don't learn anything, you just hurt yourself. So study, and at the same time do your research about the market. So this is what we have done. We've always done research about the market, so the areas where to invest, the tenants profile and demand in the specific area for specific target of tenants, and learn the process and hire a very good professional team until or you should always do that, but most importantly when you don't have when you are at your first experience, let's say.
Of course. Of course.
So and stay on it. So the approach should be hands-on. In this field the approach should be hands-on.
Of course. Or if you don't want to do it yourself, you can still ask Francesco's team to be your project manager, and they do everything for you. So
of course, yeah.
the easiest. All right. Thank you so much, Francesco, for being our very first guest of Portfolio Builders.
It's a pleasure.
We wish you all the best, and good luck with your next property development.
Thank you, Giovanni, and good luck with the podcast.
Thank you. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye.